sleep becomes a currency. So if you will do
I
anything,
can attest. I can attest to that.
you will do anything to sleep. It gets to the point where coffee doesn't do anything. If you have to
No,
bottle, and I have to bottle feed 2 liters,
yeah,
you have no idea.
no. You're like a zombie around the clock because as soon as you're done feeding one puppy, let's say what I did was I put they have color tags so I know which puppy is which, and let's say I'm
Hmm.
feeding 4 on the bottle and 9 are on the breast. Now the next feeding comes around, I put the ones which are on the bottle on the breast, and the ones which are on the breast are now on the bottle. As you're done with your last feeding, the next feeding already comes. So it's nonstop, man. So if you think you can work a full-time job and do this, you simply can't. You must have the time to be a breeder. If you these puppies completely rely upon you and they're completely helpless without you, and I think if you are not going to be ethical and put your love and care into these puppies, because they didn't ask to be born into this world, you brought them into this world. And I think that a breeder who or aspiring breeder who doesn't have the time to devote this or doesn't have the support of their spouse or significant other and they're not on board, they say, well, I want nothing to do with this. You is all of your idea and not part of this. If you're breeding and you don't have the support, emotional support of your significant other, I think you're in the wrong business of breeding dogs. What is your position on this? Can you share your experience?
Well, for me, like I've done everything myself. I just 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? Like I just it gets to the point where this is how it works. Mix the formula, prepare everything, feed the puppy. I was lucky because the first time it was 6, the second time it was 4. So it takes about an hour for everything. You're done. Then you set the countdown timer for approximately 90 minutes. You pass out for 90 minutes. If you're not too tired to fall asleep, which
Right.
you'll learn that's like about 4or 5 days in,
Absolutely.
then you'll wake up. Then you got to prepare everything. Then you spend an hour feeding. So it's basically
Right.
an hour on, hour and a half off.
Right.
And
Right.
in regards to like, so first of all, in regards to your boss, you have to, like, if you're not self-employed and you can't or retired or it's I've seen people, they go to work and they leave the mother with the puppies, but sometimes you come back and all your puppies are dead because the mother killed the puppies, and that's
Yeah.
not
Even
only.
though if you have a even if you have a chair rail system, for those who don't know, a chair rail is this either PVC pipe or wood, depending on how your box is made, which allows the puppy to slide underneath as the mother lies down. But that's
Yeah,
if you're watching, it's still not foolproof
yeah,
because they can't. You have to watch it.
the shelf system, no, but what I'm saying is that some females will just kill a litter because they get
Yeah.
frustrated,
Yes,
especially
that's right.
between 14 and 21 days. At 21 days I start feeding them kibble soaked with the
Yeah,
milk
mush,
with
mush.
the.
Yeah, I call it
But
kasha.
before the 21 days, they 17, 18, 19, 20. This is when they're likely the mother will just snap and just start killing a puppy. Maybe
Right.
two, maybe three, because they start to get little teeth. They have the little
And
nail starting to annoy her. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And if like you
No,
left, if it worked,
yeah, you can't.
you
You can't. You
mother,
have to be either working from home or ask your boss to take a vacation. You know when the puppies will be born because you know when 63 days is from the day of the breeding. Ask for vacation from your job for 2 weeks. Sometimes people you can have 3 weeks vacation. Make your vacation that 3 weeks when your puppies are going to be born. So when you
and
instead of taking vacation for vacation to relax, you're using vacation time to take care of that initial first 3 weeks of. Now, don't get me wrong, you need to give more attention than 3 weeks, but the critical period is the first 3 weeks. After that, it becomes a little easier, but you don't know if your litter makes it or not until the first 3 weeks go by. So
yes,
take time off from work in a block of time where you're not doing any work and you can dedicate full time, and I mean full time, that litter. My wife is a nurse, so she took baby's birth in the former Soviet Union. So she knows she came here later than I did. I came as a kid. and she came as an adult. So she could take birth of human babies. So for her, whelping puppies was not a big deal. I couldn't do it without her, to be honest with you, because she's such a big help to me. But all the feeding overnight, I did a lot of that for 3 days. And after 3 days, I couldn't function. I said, you take the night shift and I'll take the day shift because I need to get some sleep. My brain was shutting down. I was
Yeah.
really literally like, I actually was having, I felt like my brain is shutting down from lack of
Yeah.
sleep. You're like a zombie, man.
One time I was driving home from emergency from a C-section, and at this point, like it was like the third day of not sleeping,
Right,
and literally, it's like nighttime. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm
right.
looking, not a trailer, but it's not. I was like literally borderline hallucinating. I couldn't
Yeah,
tell if the a
yeah,
vehicle or
right.
somewhere from something. I couldn't tell if this thing was moving. People have no idea. And the thing is,
It's
like
like highway hypnosis. Yeah.
you want to get your spouse involved and get the day moving into shifts. That's great. Now she's gonna take time off of work too. So it's not what people
Yeah.
think. It's yeah, just
So you have to figure out how much money are you if you're. Some people are salaried, so they get paid the same whether they're working uh,
hmm
8 hours or 10 or whatever. But some people are hourly. For example, I'm hourly. So you have to figure out how much income I lost from work in comparison to the income I made in selling this litter.
yeah,
So people think, oh, you're making all this money, but you're losing money in taking time off from work, unless you
yeah,
have unless you're unemployed and then you can raise the litter and then you're out of work anyhow, so it doesn't matter. Or you
Tim-
constantly have a stay-home spouse and you're working, but
yeah,
you're there for the first 3 weeks and then she takes over for the last 3 weeks,
yeah.
uh, 5 weeks, whatever the number is. In other words, um, it's a very labor-intensive process, and if you have to pay yourself per hour compared to what you're making per puppy, you're not making anything because if you had to compensate yourself at even $20 an hour, and I make much more than $20 an hour in my profession, you're not being paid nothing by the time
Mm-mm,
you sell the litter.
nothing.
So people think it's a lot of money, but you have to pay yourself something for your time. You're not paying nothing.
It's not. It
So
really.
yeah. So I'm gonna step away to use the restroom. I'll be right back. 1 second. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back too. So I want to recap the previous section before we go to the next section. So basically, a breeder, a prospective breeder, must have at least 6,000 cash for a potential C-section, 2,000 to 2,500 in stud fees, about 500 in whelping supplies because of the about 500 for the cost of a whelping box, or you can make one yourself, but you still spend for materials. So overall, 6,000 plus stud fee plus the advertising cost of selling an entire litter, I found to be roughly the cost of a single puppy. So that is something you must have to advertise the litter. Then there's the cost of a website to sell a litter. Now you can have free website like Wix or GoDaddy, but they usually don't rank. So in order to have a professional in India build a website, costs you about 1,500 US. If an American developer build a website, it's $2,000 to $4,000 to build a proper website that will rank in the search results. The other thing you must understand is if your breed sells or not. For example, you go to Google Analytics, Google Trends, you type in sales of German Shepherds in the last 5 years, or sales of Golden Retrievers in the last 5 years, whatever the breed is, sale of Cane Corsas in the last 5 years. It'll give you a trend over time um, of which parts of the country had more sales of your breed over the last 5 years. So, for example, if your breed sells well in Kansas, but not in New York City, when you do Google AdWords, you purchase Google AdWords to put the litter in front of 10,000 to 20,000 eyeballs. In other words, you're paying for clicks. So from 10,000 people who saw the video or the ad, only 1% will actually buy. So you need 40,000 views to sell to 4 customers. It's called conversion efficiency of your advertising. So out of 10,000 views, only 4,000 will open the ad. Out of 4,000, 400 will watch it all the way to the end because people have ADD these days. They watch TikTok, they have like zero attention span, which is not making sense. People used to read books and novels for hours. Now people cannot watch something for 4 minutes. I don't understand that. You're making a decision for something which will be with you for 12 years of your life, but you want to see something for less than a minute. I don't understand that. But anyhow, that is what it is right now in today's society. So you must hit 10,000 views to get one buyer. It's called the conversion efficiency of your advertising. And that tells you, Google Trends tells you where your breed is selling best in which part of the country. That's true for Canada, Australia, all Western countries. The Google Trends tells you your analytics. So, and it's free. So let's say you're breeding purebred Labrador retrievers and it's not selling. Will you cross it with a poodle for the sake of making a buck? Will you mongrelize your breed and bastardize your breed to sell this cross, which is now popular? I think it's a question of ethics. Will you ruin 100 years of breeding just to make a buck? That's why I don't like the doodle breeders. I think that they're just bastardizing both breeds to make money. And I don't think that's ethical because you can get a mongrel from the animal shelter. Why would you pay for a mongrel $5,000, which is what they're selling for, by the way? So crossbreeds is the mongrelization of breeds, in my opinion. So the bottom line is there's about a $10,000 cost before you even have a first litter. C-section 6,000, stud feed 2,000, 2,000 or more for advertising expenses, 1,500 to build at least to build a website, whelping supplies 500, and there's cost. So there's basically a 10,000 startup cost as a minimum before you start breeding. So for people who think breeding is on the cheap, we just both explained to you that it's not cheap in terms of money or your health and in terms of lack of sleep. So I just wanted to summarize this part of the discussion. The next part of the discussion is the ethics of dog breeding. There are a couple of topics. The first topic is breeding dogs too young, like 1 year of age. The second type of topic is the warranty or guarantee you give your puppy buyer and how to write a contract that protects the breeder, not just the buyer. I look at it as protecting the breeder. That's how I write my contracts. And what if your buyer hurts your puppy medically due to negligence? Or what if the buyer steals your puppy through reversing transactions? And so I wanted to cover these ethics questions in the second half of the video. So let's talk about first things first. A lot of people breed a dog which is 1 year old. She's a puppy herself. What do you think of these kind of people, Alex?
Yeah. So for large breed dogs, you got to wait until the third heat. Some people will tell you 2 years. Well, sometimes the third heat can come at 25 months. Some can come at 23 months. At 23 months, your dog is shy 1 month of 2 years, but it has had a third heat. So for me, I don't use the number of 2 years. I just say third heat.
And not in my
And
breed. In my breed, you don't breed until the third heat. So if the
third,
first heat comes at 6 or 7 months, the third comes at 18 months.
oh no. Well, okay, then that would be too young. So in my experience,
Right. You have a different breed. That's why.
yeah, so in my experience, my female from Bosnia, she got her third heat literally at 23 or 22 months.
Right. But she's not 12 months, which is my point.
No. Third heat was basically almost 2 years. My Hungarian female,
Right.
and the first heat came at 6 months old, right? My
Right.
Hungarian female, she didn't get her first heat until she was a good 11 months old.
Right.
So she didn't come into third heat until she was 2.5.
Right.
And
Right.
my my one of the daughters, she was like clockwork.
Right. Regular, irregular. Yeah, that's
Her,
what people need to understand. That see, what happens is a couple of side points and then the main point. So first of all, in my breed, you can't do OFA hip X-rays until 24 months old. Any X-rays you do before 24 months don't count. They're called OFA preliminaries. You could
mhm.
do pen hip, but you can't do OFA until 24 months. That tells you that your breeding can only be done at 24 months. That's the first thing to understand. The second thing to understand is that a dog is not mature enough at 12 months to have puppies. She's just a child herself. It's like a 16-year-old girl having babies. She's physically a woman, but mentally and emotionally, she's still a child. So you shouldn't breed a dog too young. That's number one. It's not ethical. Number two, in my breed, usually you have to title a dog. And if the dog has bad hips, you don't want to put the time into titling a dog, which will not be able to be bred anyhow because of bad hips. So what I normally do is I do a pen hip at 12 months. If it checks out, I continue working the dog in obedience and tracking and protection. And then by 24 months, I do a OFA final and then I breed. But uh, that's not like clockwork because if a female misses a heat cycle or she has irregular heat cycles, then you can't breed. So what I'm trying to explain to the viewer is that breeding is not a steady income. In other words, if you're selling toasters, I don't know, appliances, you punch out 20 toasters an hour by a machine making the toasters on an assembly line, and you sell, let's say, 20 toasters a month. And it's a pretty consistent process. So many toasters produced per month, so many toasters can be sold per month because you're selling living things. That's not how it works. And also, the economy fluctuates. Right now, we're in a period of both high interest rates and high housing costs. So household formation has been slowed down due to the high housing costs. And usually people get a dog after they buy a house. Well, right now, people can't afford housing both because of the high interest rates to curb inflation and high housing costs. So you may have to skip a year and not breed because the economy is bad, because people will not be able to afford your dogs. So if you're counting on this money of breeding dogs as a steady income, you may have to skip some years and not breed at all because there's no demand for dogs. Like during the COVID crisis, there was a tremendous demand for dogs. But during a bad economy, demand slows down. So you should, again, go to Google Trends, punch in the trend so you can see the trend is going up or the trend is going down. And if an economy is very bad, don't breed because you won't be able to sell those puppies. So if you're looking at breeding as a steady income and you have to skip a breeding because of a missed heat cycle or a mistimed heat cycle, or you're choosing to skip a heat cycle because of a bad economic conditions, it is not a steady income, guys. It is an income that comes uh, as possible, not as like clockwork. Do you agree, Alex, that economics plays a role if people buy puppies and missed heat cycles plays a role? It's not a steady income. What is your
Not
position on this?
any kind. It's not a steady income of any kind. And right now, for example, in Canada, what we're dealing with right now is number one, extremely high housing costs.
Hmm. Same in the US.
Over the past 5 years, we have had inflation,
Right,
food costs, clothing costs, gasoline price, car prices is up 40%.
right. It was a
You're seeing,
worldwide inflation, worldwide. In the US, we
yeah,
had it a little less, and
in,
but it was not. But it was worldwide after the COVID crisis.
in 2020, a bag of Royal Canin was $90 Canadian. Right now,
Okay,
a bag of Canin is $128 Canadian.
right, right.
So that's an example. It's 40%. So 40%.
Yep,
And people right now don't have really money.
that's right. The average salary in the US, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, census.gov, you can go and check it out for yourself. The average salary in the US is 60,000 a year across the country as a whole. Now, you have high income areas like California and New York, the coasts, but then you have areas like Ohio in the middle of the country where the income is much less. So, if the average house in today's economy in the US is 300 to $600,000, by the time you pay the bank back that house, you've spent 2.5 times that house in paying back interest. In other words, if the house is 600,000, twice 600,000 is 1.2 million, and 2.5 times is 1.7 million. So basically, you paid almost 1.8 million, basically almost triple the price. So, but you bought a house for 600,000. By the time you paid off over 30 years, you've paid the bank 1.8 million dollars. So your working life is to pay the bank. The banks are the ones making the money. But in terms of ability to buy dogs, if people are not buying houses, they're not buying dogs. So as you're looking at dog breeding as a potential business, keep this economic factor in mind. That's my point to the potential person who wants to breed dogs. It is not as lucrative as you think. It is lucrative only when the market allows for sales. For a while, people bought French bulldogs for as high as 7,000. Now I can find French bulldogs for 1,500. So a lot of people bought. I think I lost him. He just disconnected. The camera disconnected. Can you hear me, Alex? Because I don't know if you can hear me or just lost video or. Hi, everybody. We're here with again Alex from Vaccaro. He had some technical difficulties and we were able to pick up the show right away after some technical glitches. So we wanted to continue our conversation. I think you're going to get some real scoop here about situations that breeders must face. And everybody talks about ethical breeding, but nobody talks about ethical buying. And people think it's easy money, and it's not. And I have stories to share, and Alex has stories to share. So, Alex, why don't you begin? Why don't you tell the audience about a situation you had where everybody thought you're making 35,000, and in fact you lost money? Why don't you share that story with the audience, please?
So basically, what ended up happening is I had a female. She was scheduled on Tuesday. It, um, it looked like she was pregnant with 12. It's Sunday, and I see that she's spotting blood, spotting, and it's bright red.
Oh
So
boy,
that pretty much torn uterus.
right.
Some ring. we end up going to emergency, and I'm in emergency, and the doctor basically tells me you need an emergency C-sections immediately. The dog has a torn uterus. They do the emergency C-section. Out of 12 puppies, 4 puppies survived, and then three, and then out of that I lost one, so 3. Okay, so the cost of the emergency C-section, puppy care for revival and everything was 5,500. This is with, for no, 5,700. This is with transfusion of blood. So now I'm at minus 5,700. Only my second litter, so at that point I still don't have a male, and it doesn't, my own male, it doesn't matter if you have your own males, because your second litter, if you're trying to build up your females, you're still probably going to be outsourcing. So my stud fee was $4,000. So now
Wow.
we $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
I lost the female that I purchased for 30. Well, it was 5,000 Canadian by the time I brought her, because her uterus is gone. That's $5,000, and the fee for feeding her for 2 years and doing all that stuff and just basic veterinarian care and everything, you're looking at about $250 a month. If nothing bad happens, that's 3,000 a year, 6,000. So that's altogether $21,000. I'm gonna
Right.
mind the 3 puppies that survived. The ear, by the time you're done, all the ear cropping and everything, the puppies are going out for 3,500 or 4,000 of the ear crop. By the time you minus everything, you're looking at, let's say $9,000 for 3 puppies profit, minus the expenses, the losses. So now you're basically on a minus by what, $11,000.
Right. And the
So
emotional cost of going through all this, and the harrowing emotional toll it took on you,
the
that you
emotion,
almost lost a dog which you loved, I'm sure, and the
yeah,
emotional cost of losing puppies. So there's a financial cost, but there's also a significant emotional cost.
yeah, she was my foundation female, and the emotional cost was huge. At that point, like just like within any breed, there's show lines, there's working lines, and the show line, are usually known to be very thick, heavy, wide boned type of thick dogs, and honestly, probably one of the thickest females. That very like blocky type of a look that show people like, and she was what I was known for. It's what, and all her puppies looked like her, you know. So it was very difficult. Um, the toll. The first litter I had to bottle feed, so the second litter that I was bottle feeding wasn't that bad, because there was only 4 on the beginning, but then there was only 3, so that was the only time I ever lost a puppy. But I'll tell you, I remember going. I already had the 3 puppies with me, but she was still in the emergency, and I had to go drop. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and literally I was driving home and I was borderline hallucinating. After like,
From lack of sleep.
I literally thought that I saw a little red light. I thought that red light was moving. I thought there was a trailer on the highway. There was nothing on the highway. I was completely out of it. And
So you could have been killed, basically,
oh
from
yeah,
lack of sleep.
fall asleep sometimes driving. So yeah,
Yeah.
for sure,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And people have no idea how things can go wrong.
Hmm.
I always
Yeah.
tell, this is not a quick rich scheme. This is something you really gotta love
Hmm.
and care about.
Hmm.
And what happened with me is the extreme example. In this case, But the thing is, it's not extreme because it does happen.
Correct.
Get reached, puppies get, all kinds of things happen. Hopefully, you're not going to have a torn uterus, but it can happen.
Hmm.
So
And you
it's
also have anti. You have breeders. You have veterinarians which are anti-breeder. They might spay the female in her delivery against your wishes. There's a
yeah,
lot of adopt don't shop crazies out there,
yeah,
and they're hurting their own pocket because without puppies being born, veterinarians have no service to provide because the chain of events is the dog being born then provides all the other events:
yeah,
veterinary care, food, toys, training, boarding train, just plain boarding, dog walkers having money. All the chain of events that is related to making money in this industry starts off with the puppy being born. So without that happening, the other sense of events can't possibly happen. It's what starts the process going.
yeah,
So, and I think these adopt don't shop people, what they're really saying is, because remember, the puppies in the animal shelter are also born. They're not on this earth by magic. What they're really saying is give a home to the puppy which is poorly bred from a puppy mill or a backyard breeder, and don't give a home to the well-bred puppy from an ethical breeder which
mhm,
went above and beyond in every way possible to provide emergency care for their bitch, loving care in raising the puppies and the female. And so they're saying is give the poorly bred puppy, who is the lowest possible price, a home, and don't give the well-bred puppy a home because you have price hagglers which want to buy cheap, easy come, easy go. I
yeah,
would argue a person who buys a puppy for 500 off of Craigslist will give it up very easily, which is very different than a person which will buy a puppy for 3,500 or
yep,
sometimes even 5,000. Somebody who
yeah,
buys a puppy for 3,500 is a very different kind of a customer than a puppy buyer at 500.
yep,
And that cheap puppy for let's say 850 couldn't have had hip X-rays or elbow X-rays, and the cost of surgery for a bad hip is 4 grand per hip. So that
mm-hmm,
$850 puppy becomes an $8,000 puppy when it needs bilateral surgery on both hips. So I tell people don't bargain shop for an animal. Everybody has a budget, which is fine, but people are advertising puppies for as low as $5.99. I mean, why are you bargain shopping for an animal that will live with you for 12 years? You should
mm,
get the highest quality animal, which will have the best possible life and the best possible start in life,
yeah,
not just any animal will do. And I'm very surprised at people. I have my own story to share with the audience that involves a very sad situation that happened to me. I've never shared it on this channel before, and 5 years have gone by, and I will share it with this audience. In my first litter, I was a brand new breeder. I was selling puppies for only 1,500 because I had no name, I had no reputation. By the way, that advice goes to all you new breeders or aspiring breeders. In your first litter, you're not going to make 2,500 or 3,000 per puppy. You'll make maybe 1,250 or 1,500 per puppy. You have no name, you have no advertising. People don't know you, so they're not going to give you top dollar. So figure that into your calculus as you're trying to become a breeder. In any event, in this first litter, my father-in-law was sick with cancer and heart trouble. But that's something that you don't know will happen or not happen. That's how it works with an elderly parent, my wife's father. As I was in the first week of, we had 12 puppies. We had 2 runs in the litter. One was called green tag, one was called black tag. It was all black. Well, because they have so many puppies, they cannot keep up and nurse with the mother. So the black puppy didn't make it, wouldn't suckle and hold on to the breast, and he died. And I'm holding a dead puppy in my hand only 3 weeks after he was born. I made the entire litter survive, 11 puppies. I decided which puppy I'm going to keep for myself. And I had to sell the other 10 because I don't have room for 10 dogs in my house. That's a lot of dogs. I found an elderly couple in Pennsylvania which wanted to buy, and I don't discriminate by age. If they're elderly, I have no problem with that as long as they're physically able to walk the dog or have the resources to hire a dog walker and have a large property where the dog will have a backyard, that's fine with me. We met halfway between Pennsylvania and New Jersey. It was a 3 hour drive each way. So we met an hour and a half each way. The puppy was clinging to my wife like, I don't want to go with these people. And I should have went with my instinct. 3 days after they get the puppy, 3 days, this woman calls me and says, this puppy doesn't have the puppy glow. I says, what do you mean puppy glow? What are you talking about glow? I gave you a healthy puppy. I had it checked out by a vet the day before I sold it to you. You got a clean bill of health. It had all the vaccinations, especially for parvo, which can quickly kill a dog. It was fully vaccinated. Um, what are you saying? It says, go to the vet immediately. I don't know what you're saying. Go to the vet. In your contract, you have 72 hours to check the dog out. Go to the vet and check out what's happening. She calls me back next day. She says, the vet says the puppy swallowed a pebble, the intestine twisted, and the puppy will die. The puppy needs emergency surgery, and if action is not taken, the puppy has to be put to sleep or die a horrible death where the intestine is in pain. I said, okay, well, I'm no longer the owner of this puppy. The moment you take possession, you become the owner, and um, I'm not responsible. You're responsible. She says, fine. If that's your answer, we're in Social Security, we're in a fixed income, we can't afford the $3,000 for surgery, and we're going to put it to sleep. I'm standing there speechless because number one, she's so cavalier about it. She's so cold and calculated about it, like it means nothing to her. This is a puppy I held in my hands, only 8 weeks old, only 3 days earlier. And she wants to put it to death like it's a business decision and without even, there's no emotion in her. For her, it's all about money and calculations. I said, I didn't know you were on Social Security when I sold you the dog. You told me you had your own business when we spoke. And I don't know why you don't have money to pay for the healthcare costs, but you have to spend the money. I'll go half with you. I'm not obligated to, but I'll go half with you if it means saving the dog's life. She says, no, I don't want to pay half. I says, do me a favor, put the vet on the phone. I speak with the vet. I says, doctor, what's going on here? She says, she's probably swallowed a pebble. That's what the ultrasound shows because we can see it on the ultrasound, a pebble. We can see it on the machine. I says, okay. How much is the surgery? He says, $3,000. I said, do it. I'll pay it and I'll take the dog back. He does the surgery and the dog has to be in the hospital under fluids and an IV for 3 days afterwards. And it costs, I think it was 500 a day for the dog to be on fluids and blood transfusions to um, kick the health up a notch. In other words, the dog has to recover, sleep off the anesthesia and be kept quiet so the intestine can have a chance to heal. She calls me up, says, I don't want this puppy even 3 days. I'm not paying the hospital cost of the vet office. I says, what are you talking about? I says, the dog has to sleep off the anesthesia and you have to pay the hospital costs. I already paid for the surgery. The dog is in your possession and you're currently the legal owner of the dog. I'm not paying the hospital stay. I says, listen, lady, you're going to pay the hospital stay. I'm not reimbursing you and I'm coming to pick up the puppy this coming weekend. Before the weekend arrives, I get a call from her again. She says, the puppy's near death again. I says, what? The dog just had surgery. What's going on? The vet refuses to operate again because he's afraid we'll sue him. I said, okay. Put him on the phone again. He refuses to come to the phone. He says, you're not the legal owner. I don't have to speak to you. I says, okay. So I don't know what's going on. I'm not there. You're very far away from me. What's the solution that you were offered? He's telling me to drive the dog to the Pennsylvania Veterinary College. And there's a professor he had who teaches vets to become vets. He'll do the surgery, but it's a 5 hour drive for me, and I'm not willing to drive. I said, you're not willing to drive? I says, there's no ambulance or taxi that picks up dogs. You have to drive. and you have to drive soon because you don't have much time on your hands. I'm not willing to drive. I said, listen to me. Why aren't you willing to drive? I can't drive because I have to take care of my flower shop and this will interrupt my business. Aha. So 3 days ago, you told me you're on Social Security and you don't have income. And 3 days later, you're telling me you have a flower shop and you cried poor, but actually you have your own business. So you're deceiving me and you forced me to pay for the surgery. I says, put your husband on. His name was Charlie. I says, Charlie, do me a favor. Drive this dog to that veterinary clinic. Otherwise, the first surgery didn't save the dog. There was no point doing the surgery. Drive him, please. He was crying. He was very emotional. He was more emotional than she was. She was a cold, calculating bitch. There's no other way to say it. He drives her to 5 hours. I'm on pins and needles, hoping the puppy arrives alive and not dead. By the time the puppy arrives in the hospital, it's now 11 o'clock at night. By the time the puppy gets to that location, I speak with the vet on the phone. This is a professor of veterinary medicine. I says, Professor, what's going on? She says, the first surgeon untwisted the intestine but didn't cut out the bad section and sew the two pieces together. I says, okay, so what will it take to fix it? He says, we have to untwist it again, cut out the, I have dogs too, they might start barking too.
Oh,
We
something.
have to,
Oh, my kitchen.
oh, okay, it happens, yeah. We have to cut out the bad piece of the intestine and then connect the two pieces which are remaining to each other and then secure it to the walls of the stomach. I said, okay, how much is this surgery? He says, $6,000. Sorry for the dogs barking. I can't help it. They'll come down in a minute. Sorry, guys, for the background noise. So the barking is breaking my train of thought. So I said, Doctor, I already spent 3,000. It's not even my dog anymore. Can you give me a break? He cut the price in half. I put it on a credit card, and the second surgery was done. Uh, I get the puppy back that weekend. I paid them the $1,500 back. They don't deserve any dog, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I bring her home. She looks like a hurt child, a wounded child. Oh, one of your dogs, beautiful. Um, she lives with me until 4.5 months of age without any signs of problems. All of a sudden, um, she is looks like she's passing out, like something is wrong. And I'm like, damn, something was wrong. I immediately make phone calls to people who are able to operate on German Shepherds because maybe it's bloat, maybe it's something else. I don't know if it's related to the first surgery or not because for 4.5 months she's fine.
Hmm.
I go to the Bergen County Veterinary Center in Bergen County, New Jersey. Dr. Schiffman is a very, very good vet. Highly recommend. The best, one of the best vets in Bergen County, in my opinion. I drive the dog there. She's at death's door. She's examining the vet. I gave her the documents from the other surgery. I says, Doctor, what's going on? He says, the attachment to the wall of the intestine failed. The intestine twisted again. I said, okay, I understand that. What is the cost and what is the solution? He says, we already did the ultrasound to determine the problem. We already did blood work because that we have to do medical workup before we do anything. I says, okay, so you now owe us 1,500 for all the testing we did
Oh, yeah.
without any action being taken because there's a cost to them to determine what to do. There's a built-in cost to diagnose the problem. I says, okay, I understand that. So what's the outcome? She says, well, either I do surgery or you put the dog to sleep. Are you sure you want to do the surgery? I says, the dog, might survive, might not. I says, doctor, I already did two surgeries and every penny I made from that litter went to save this one puppy. And I can always make more money, but my conscience will bother me if I choose money over life and death because she didn't deserve the death she will get because of these people's negligence. She says, okay, the surgery will be 4,500 in addition to the 1,500 diagnostic costs you spent with us. I said, do it. I, I had a good credit and I applied for a credit card on the spot, and there was care credit, and they gave me the money right away. The surgery was done. What she did was the intestines are like a salami or sausages. They're like they weave like they're a letter S. So
Hmm.
she connected this intestine to this intestine to this intestine. In other words, she made them like a harmonica, which would be connected to each other. And she sewed all the intestines to each other. So one twist, the other one holds it in place. In other words, they can't all unbend at the same time.
Okay.
So she did the surgery. The dog survived and lived with me for 5 years after this surgery. I couldn't train her because obedience and Schutzen involves jumping over a jump or the A-frame. I couldn't do that with her because if anything intensive, everything inside could rip.
Yeah.
I couldn't get an obedience title on her because I was afraid anything extra will make her rip the intestines.
Yeah.
I had to keep her sedated for 10 days to make her sleepy so she wouldn't move around so the intestines could heal. But then she had a normal quality of life. She jumped, she ran, she played, she had sunshine. I was happy that her life was saved. Not long ago, I lost her. Her intestine disconnected from her bowel that takes it to the anus because it was so tight that there was no more give.
Yeah.
And the poop and the blood mixed together, causing sepsis, and she passed, and I had to put her to sleep because she was suffering. So this dog had a low quality of life. I emotionally cried my eyes out because the dog didn't deserve this death,
No.
all because of the people who were involved. So I asked the audience, what would you do if this was your situation? Some audience members will say, well, you spend too much and you should have put the dog to sleep right away. I was so wrapped up in just having that feeling like I just gave them birth. It's almost like you're giving them birth, even though obviously the mother dog is. I couldn't put myself to put her to sleep after that whole incident. I tried to sue this woman. The lawyer advised me that the only thing you can get back is the cost of the dog and not the cost of the surgeries or emotional pain and suffering without spending much more than the cost of the dog in pursuing a legal case. I said, because a dog is considered property and you're not going to get the emotional costs for pain and suffering in the lawsuit. And the fact that the dog survived means you don't have a case. I said, this should not be allowed. This person is unethical, and I suffered as a result of it emotionally, financially, and the dog itself really, really suffered. The lawyer told me, well, pursue it if you want to. I'm at 300 an hour. It's your choice. So the bottom line is that one of the things in my puppy contracts that I have is that the dog must be examined in the 72 hours after the buyer buys it.
Hmm.
I advise all my buyers to watch the dog like a hawk because they put everything in their mouth like crazy. And I now have a special clause. If the puppy swallows a foreign substance due to your not watching the puppy, I have no financial or emotional liability past the point of sale.
Yeah.
So the contract of the seller is not protecting the buyer, it actually protects the seller. Same thing with hip dysplasia. It doesn't protect the buyer, it protects the seller because the only time you have hip dysplasia, which is congenital, if it's bilateral hip dysplasia, not hip dysplasia of one hip, means it's environmental. If it's both hips, it means it's genetic. So please, guys, if you become breeders, make sure you have a good contract. It limits your liability and exposure. It protects the buyer to some degree, but it really protects you, the breeder, to come up with a proper contract that limits your liability. You also don't give a performance guarantee in my breed. For example, let's say the buyer buys a dog and says, it'll be a protection dog. or otherwise I don't want this German Shepherd. You cannot guarantee what the dog will be if you're not the one raising it. You're not selling a trained dog. You're only selling a puppy. If they demand a performance guarantee, I don't want that buyer. Uh, I'm not selling an adult trained dog. I do occasionally sell adult dogs, but what I'm saying is I mostly sell puppies. I don't offer a performance guarantee in selling puppies. Anybody asking for a performance guarantee wants to burn and churn dogs. They go through a lot of dogs very quickly to get what they consider the one, and they're very hard on their dogs. I've seen videos where people basically do gladiator sport with a dog. It's not meant to be vicious. It's meant to be a part of the family. So I don't want that kind of a buyer, which will push the dog to its limits and then, oh, it didn't work out. I want another one. You give me a performance guarantee.
Mm.
So I don't want that kind of a buyer. So the point of my story is to tell people that there are a lot of unscrupulous buyers out there. There are buyers who reverse financial transactions. There are buyers which will hurt your puppy. There are buyers who will do wrong by your puppy. You as a breeder must always be a lifeline to your puppies. And if your puppies are on a chain or neglected or abused, you must be willing to take that puppy back under all circumstances. So an ethical breeder will care about their puppy after they leave your kennel. An unethical breeder says, I made my money, I am not responsible, I wash my hands. So that's how you can tell who you're dealing with. A person who cares, like me or Alex in this show. They care about the outcome of these puppies. They care about giving them good homes. They'll take even a financial loss, but the dogs come out good because the dog having a good home is the critical factor. The dog being in good, loving hands is the critical factor, not money. So if you're entering this industry thinking, oh, I'll make a killing, it's a fast buck, you're in the wrong game, man. You're
Mm-hmm.
not approaching it right.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, do you want to add some comments to what I just said?
So yes, definitely protect yourself with a contract. 70% all hip dysplasia is environmental, not genetic. And you will see some purchase a dog. They're doing all kinds of things with the dog. Next thing you know, dog is 6 months pulling the children. You're looking at this. Told you take it easy on the.
Yeah, your audio is breaking up. I'm going to repeat for the people who didn't hear. The dog is pulling a sled at 6 months old, causing it to be damaged hips, right? Because the audio broke apart a little bit. Can you say one more time because the audio broke up?
Situations where people a pickup truck and the dog is jumping
Yeah,
off. That's not good for the elbows either. And
right,
so people will do all kinds of things like that and then try to blame you. Sure, you
right,
have a contract in where okay, you're saying that the dog has hip this. Okay, no problem. So in order for the contract, the way the contract is written is the warranty against the hip dysplasia, um, warranted against hip dysplasia. All environmental hip dysplasia is excluded. Environmental hip dysplasia is defined as unilateral hip dysplasia. The dog warranty covers against bilateral hip dysplasia with the score, with the OFA score of, and there's four scores in the OFA. What
right.
what's the
It's
lowest?
it's excellent. Is the best. Uh, I can share my screen if everybody wants to take a quick look. I'll share a quick. I'll share the screen and I'll present it so everybody can see it from the OFA website itself. One
So
second, please.
there's basically you're gonna see guys on the screen the ratings, and then
Right,
pick the rating that you would want to include, and you basically in the warranty say that if the dog has a rating of this or lower, then you may have a replacement puppy. However, all of the screening, the veterinarian bills for the OFA
Right.
You cover, the buyer has to cover, and the buyer has
Right.
to turn the shipping of the puppy, and that when the puppy is replaced, that puppy is of sale and doesn't come with warranty.
Let me share that screen to people to know what I am saying. So can everybody see um, this screen or not yet? Everybody can see it.
Yeah, it popped up. There.
So this is OFA excellent hips. Notice the socket is deep into the joint right here, where there's good coverage of the uh, by the pelvis of the hip joint. That's excellent. This is good, where the coverage is good, but not as deep. In other words, you see the top of the pelvis, it doesn't go over the circular part of the hip. It's just in the socket deep, but it's not giving coverage beyond the circular ball joint. Here is fair hips, where see the disconnect distance from the socket to the pelvis. See there's that gap. See the airline of the gap. See the gap between the pelvis and the pelvis. So this is still acceptable for breeding fair. So if one of your dogs is fair, the other partner must be excellent, or don't breed that dog. You cannot breed a fair to a fair. Now we do mild hip dysplasia. Notice the socket is nearly out of the coverage. See this point right here where the uh, pelvis is, the socket is almost at the outside perimeter of the pelvis. See how far that is from the inner, and notice the distance between the pelvis and the socket. This is called mild. This is already dysplastic. And then severe, this dog is barely walking and is in severe pain. This is severe hip dysplasia. Very shallow socket, crooked into the socket, and very far away from the coverage point of the pelvis into the socket. So this is why you do OFA testing, to make sure that from a genetic point of view, you've done your part and your due diligence as a breeder. But if the buyer jumps the dog, it's in my contract. If you jump the dog off of a high surface, jump the dog in the cement, castrate the dog before 24 months, same thing with a female. If you do a hysterectomy before 24 months, the protective hormones you need to have for the bones to close are gone. No hip and elbow guarantee. If you fix the animal before 24 months, your warranty for hip and elbow dysplasia is gone, because you've removed the hormones the dog needs for the bones to fuse, because they're cartilage, they have to become bone. So you can't have an elbow guarantee if you spay the dog before 24 months. You want to spay it after 24 months, and you bought the dog with a limited registration, meaning no breeding rights. That's fine if that's what you want to do. I don't believe in spay and neuter. I believe you can control your dogs without spay and neuter. But if you want to spay and neuter, I can't control it. You're now the buyer. It's your dog. But if you do it before 24 months, I don't honor the hip and elbow guarantee. That's what I do. But that's my advice to new breeders, to add that to the contract. That's in my contract. Uh, Alex, any other things you want to cover?
Yeah, I just want to, different people will have different, will cover different things. So we just talked about the various of the OFA, right? So a lot of people will cover the lower for the warranty, because basically the dog out have a proper life, and a lot of people will not some cover, um, the minor too. Again, with the minor hip dysplasia, if it's in both, it will be genetic. You
Hmm.
know, if it's not in both, then it's not going to be genetic, because
It's environmental, right?
environmental. So you have to be clear in your contract, or if it's not clear in your contract, you can get advantage of. If the person takes you to court. So,
Hmm. Right.
and
Yeah.
the one that's really good is that the puppy, that the warranty states that the puppy has all the shots up to date,
Right.
and that the warranty, that in order for the warranty to take hold, you must take the puppy to the veterinarian within 72 hours for an
Right.
and within that 72-hour period, you can return the puppy. After this, there's no
Yeah. Right.
and again, that puppies swallow things all the time. Puppies swallow things all the time, and your pedal story is completely normal. And the more dogs you raise, the more dogs you have, and the more dogs you breed, the more stories you're going to hear. And
Right.
they sometimes on Instagram, people show the surgeries and what they pull out of the dogs, and it's just unbelievable. Like socks, underwear, children's toys, all kinds of things. The dogs can get into and eat. So be very careful.
I agree. Okay, guys. So we've been discussing this for over 2 hours overall. I hope you enjoyed it. To recap very briefly, in the first half of the video, we talked about how to be an ethical breeder. We talked about the startup cost of buying quality animals. We talked about your ability to buy from Europe, and you may not get what you think you get because you have no recourse. We talked about genetic testing. We talked about hip and elbow testing. We talked about supplies for the whelp. We talked about the whelping box. We talked about medicine. We talked about veterinary costs. You need at least $10,000 in startup costs, not counting the cost of your female. There's also a carrying cost to carrying the dogs you have in your kennel, in feeding costs and housing costs, between 250 to 300 a month easily per dog. You must have a budget for stud fees, or you must have your own male. But whether to have a male or not is up to you. Basically, better to have females only if possible, because the male you can get for a stud fee. Unless you cannot get access to a high quality male, then you must have your own male. So that's a cost you must bear. There's a cost to setting up a website. That's a cost you must bear. There's a cost to advertising. That's a cost you must bear. So between advertising cost, whelping cost, medical, it is not a cheap industry to do it right. Now, if somebody sells you an $850 puppy, you get what you pay for. You get a puppy that was not raised right, was living in poor conditions. It was a volume operation, pumping out puppies as fast as possible. I have buyers calling me, "Do you have puppies available?" I says, "No, we'll have a litter in a month or two." Where, no, I want a puppy now. They treat dog breeders like vending machines. But dogs are not produced; they're born. Anybody who's in that much of a hurry, you don't want them as a buyer. Let them move on. They have to understand that dogs are not produced like you turn on a switch and out comes a puppy. That's not how it works.
Another, sorry, just to interrupt.
Yeah,
Another good one is to have people um, fill a form. So
correct,
have a website, there's a form. If you have an advertisement, there is a form. If
correct.
you have Instagram, you can have a link to a form. This is something that I recently realized will be
A screening tool.
good, and it's not even a screening tool because there's nothing on the form I cannot ask.
Right,
What it is this: lazy people who have the attention span of a goldfish will not fill out the form. I know.
correct.
I'm telling you guys, even that little thing weed out a little bit of the people.
Right. I also have a form. If they can't be bothered to fill out a form that an animal will live with them for 10 to 12 years or more, depending on the breed, of course. If you can't take 10 minutes to fill out a form, then you shouldn't be buying a dog because you're putting zero thought into it.
Yeah, and
Uh, and you shouldn't be buying a dog. You have no attention span. You have no reason to have a dog.
there's a new.
You're buying a toy, and you're not buying a toy. You're buying a living thing. So if you can't bother filling out a form, don't buy a dog.
Yeah, I think there's a new app now. It's called Jake Form or something like that. I looked at and I was like, this is a really good tool. You just make the form and that's it. It's
Yeah,
form is great. It kind of reminds me of the time when I asked the guy. I said, okay, how much exercise is the dog going to get, and do you have a yard? How big is the yard, and is the yard fenced?
right. It's a reasonable question. It's a large breed. Yeah.
question. The guy gave me this answer. No, I live in a building, but I have legs and I walk. And I
He's
was
giving
like,
you an attitude.
done, attitude, bye. No.
Exactly. Goodbye, Charlie. Exactly. So I guess, guys, you heard the inner scoop from real people who have done this in real life. And if this conversation doesn't dissuade you, fine, but you at least opened your mind of what you must potentially face. And I hope this conversation helps you in your quest to become a breeder. I'm signing off. Alex, thank you very much. This was a pleasure. And I
Thank
would
you.
love to have you back anytime. I hope the audience enjoys this broadcast, and I really hope you will watch it on Alex's YouTube channel and on Joe's channel, where it'll be simulcast. All the best, and take care, guys. Bye, Alex.
Yeah.
Bye.
And that wraps up another episode of the Von Ganta House YouTube channel. Thank you for being part of our German Shepherd community. Remember, you can stay connected to us beyond the podcast. Find us on all the major media platforms by searching for Von Ganta House. Whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, just hit that follow button or that subscribe button to join the conversation and get the latest updates. If you have a burning question or want to apply to be a guest on our show, we would love to hear from you. Simply shoot us an email at vongantahouse@gmail.com. And if you are a business interested in becoming a sponsor, reach out to us at the same email address at vongantahouse@gmail.com. For more resources, exclusive content, puppy reservations, visit our website at vongantahouse.com. We have blogs and articles you might enjoy as well. It's your go-to destination for everything German Shepherd and working dog sports related content. Thank you once again for tuning in. We can't wait to speak with you again, where we explore the fascinating world of breeding, training, genetics, and our wonderful breed. Look forward to hearing from you. And that wraps up another episode of the Von Ganta House YouTube channel. Thank you for being part of our German Shepherd community. Remember, you can stay connected to us beyond the podcast. Find us on all the major media platforms by searching for Von Ganta House. Whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, just hit that follow button or that subscribe button to join the conversation and get the latest updates. If you have a burning question or want to apply to be a guest on our show, we would love to hear from you. Simply shoot us an email at vongantahouse@gmail.com. And if you are a business interested in becoming a sponsor, reach out to us at the same email address at vongantahouse@gmail.com. For more resources, exclusive content, puppy reservations, visit our website at vongantahouse.com. We have blogs and articles you might enjoy as well. It's your go-to destination for everything German Shepherd and working dog sports related content. Thank you once again for tuning in. We can't wait to speak with you again, where we explore the fascinating world of breeding, training, genetics, and our wonderful breed. Look forward to hearing from you.